Hi, everybody. In this video, I want to give you some helpful tools and tips as you're beginning your introduction to your research projects. The introduction is really a key part of your proposal because it, for lack of a better word, introduces your readers to what you're going to do. It's kind of a summary or a snapshot of what you hope to accomplish in your study. So I want to give you some tools and tips that are in form of a checklist provided by Cresswell and Cresswell, and that I've put on our website for our course. I'd like to also give you an example and use an example from that's also on the website on where you can find the examples of research proposals, the research proposal introduction example 1. Now, this isn't a perfect example, and that's okay because I want to work on it together. So let's first start out by looking at the checklist. So if you look at the checklist, you can see that it's just a series of questions that we can ask ourselves to identify whether or not our introduction does what an introduction should do. So these could be as simple as having the opening sentence be engaging and encouraging you to continue reading, identifying the problem, the gap in the literature, frame in a way that's consistent with the research approach. If I'm going to do quantitative, do I cite a lot of quantitative studies? Do I talk about a theory? If it's qualitative, do I identify some themes, or do I not have a theory because I'm going to generate a theory? Do I have recent citations? Do I have specific deficiencies in the past studies identified? And that goes up to the problem or the issue, right? So let's talk about my example here. And we're going to go through this checklist together. So let's go to the opening sentence. Now, this is a little bit of an opinion because what's interesting to me might not be interesting to somebody else, but something to help is to think about what audience I'm writing to. So what audience are you writing to? In this particular proposal, I'm talking about self-efficacy beliefs and students, particularly college students. So I'm writing, and I may be writing to other professors or researchers in higher education settings. I may be writing to teachers. So let's read this. Self-efficacy beliefs play a significant role in influencing how students feel, think, motivate themselves, and behave. I think those are pretty important, right? So that's a good sentence that kind of catches and tells me what I'm going to be looking at. And then I start talking about it, right? And I guess you can say that I'm starting to identify this issue, right? There's concepts related to self-efficacy, locus of control, and outcome expectancy. Previous literature has found some relationships that are important. But as you go reading through this, you'll notice that I really don't do a very good job of identifying a problem or a specific deficiencies in past studies. So I, for example, might put a new paragraph here, started out something like this. However, research on self-efficacy has mainly focused on graduate students. That is a gap in the previous literature, and I would make sure I cite my the articles that I found. And then I would go on to explain how I feel like I could fill this gap, right? I'd like to look at undergraduate students and their self-efficacy and how they feel about how they can do research, for example. Some other questions. Did I use relevant citations within the past 10 years? Well, 1994 is a bit old. 2006, 2010. Oh, here's a 2021, 2015. These are a little bit old. So I might need to look at some more recent articles as well. Are reasons provided that indicate the significance of the study for audiences? Well, I haven't done that yet. So this is what I would put in here, right? I would have my reasons. Here's a reason. What it might help do? Well, if I'm a teacher, it might help me understand how I can modify my instruction to better support student learning so that they can feel confident in their own abilities, right? That they can do research like you watching this movie or this video. I hope that this video helps you feel more confident in writing an introduction. Our reasons provided, let's see, that's where we're at. Is the introduction limited to about 2 pages? No, let's look and see this. There's 1, 2, yep, that's about 2 pages. I have a little bit of extra to add, but I don't have to add a lot. So I probably add maybe 3 or 4 lines more, right? Is the introduction well written and easy to read? Now, Packback and other writing tools can help you with this, or you can go to the Writing Center to check, or you can just ask somebody around you to say, can you read this and understand it? That's important as well, because the introduction is the hook. It gets people into reading what you're doing, okay? So we're going to also talk about the purpose statement, because the purpose is kind of the final little blip of your introduction before your research questions. It tells your readers what this study is going to do. So let's look at, first of all, my example, and you can see that I can't really tell where the purpose statement is. And one of the things that you can do that's very easy and simple is to just put in purpose of study, a heading that signals to your readers where your purpose statement is. This is actually my purpose statement. In fact, you can see down here, the purpose of this study is to explore blah, blah, blah. Here my purpose is, right? Undergraduate students. But the problem is these signaling words, again, here's a checklist that you can find on the website, the class website, for your purpose statement. Do they begin with signaling words? This is helpful. But actually, I might want to start out with the purpose of this study. So I might want to move this sentence up here. The purpose of the study is to explore, and then explain why this is important, right? So I'd have to read through this and make sure it still flows in the right way, but that might be more helpful. So let's highlight that word, because that is some signaling words that I'm trying to find. So those are good. The statement identify the strategy of inquiry. Oh, so am I going to be using qualitative or quantitative or mixed method? So I don't think it does. In fact, I just talk and talk and talk. So maybe I should say the purpose of this quantitative study or qualitative study. There we go. I've identified the strategy, and now it doesn't have to be huge. I'm not going to describe the strategy here. I'm just identifying it so somebody can read it and be like, oh, that's a quantitative study, right? Maybe it's going to be a quantitative correlational study, and we'll get into that more as we get into some of the chapters below in the later chapters in Creswell and Creswell. Does the statement mention the participants? Related for undergraduate students. Here we go. These are our participants. And I might even just specify how many, but we don't know how many at this point because I haven't done the study yet. But I have specified that they're for undergraduate during early research experiences. So you are a graduate student doing a research experience, but I'm looking at undergraduate students for research experiences. And then mention the research site. I don't mention the research site. Maybe I should say at a 4-year university. There we go, right? Or 4-year universities or at public research institutions. That kind of, again, helps my readers know where I'm focusing at. Am I going to be at a school? Am I going to be at a business? Am I going to be in a participant's home? Where is my research going to take place? Now, you might not know this yet in the introduction, but you can come back and add this later on. Now, you'll see that the checklist for the purpose statement has a few other sections for qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods. So let's go through these just briefly so you can see some of the differences. So a qualitative purpose statement focuses only on one phenomenon. Don't go crazy, right? Focus and narrow down on undergraduate students' experiences in let's talk about their anxiety. I'm going to focus on their anxiety in research. Use an action verb to convey how learning will take place. So how will we this one doesn't have an action verb because it's a quantitative study, but we could say the purpose of this is to elaborate or to elucidate, those are big words, but right, or to shed light on through observation of, or through an ethnography, or through narrative interviews of the participants. Neutral, non-directional language. So we have to be careful that we aren't saying like, I really hate private schools or public schools, they're wrong, they're bad. We still have to have neutral language. We don't know what our study is going to say yet. We're just introducing it. And then provide a general working direction of the central phenomenon. Where are we going to, what are we going to be looking at? You can see here, I kind of have this. I've got the effect that undergraduate learning has on student aspirations and future career choices. The study seeks to explore predictors of undergraduate students. Now, this is quantitative, but in a qualitative, and you can see some examples of a qualitative research proposal on the website, you'll notice that they do the same type of thing, that they provide an idea of what the phenomenon is and where it's going. Quantitative now, which is what we were just looking at, do we identify the independent, and control variables? So if I'm going to actually have an experiment or a quasi-experiment, I may have some control variables. Or if I just have correlational, I will have at least independent, right? Well, let's look and see. The effect that undergraduate learning has on students' aspirations and career choices. Explore predictors of undergraduate students' research self-efficacy. So there's the dependent variable. Now, I don't have to call it the dependent variable, okay? I'm just having it in there, okay? You don't have to say the dependent variable is. That's a little bit, it kind of sounds weird, doesn't it? I'm just telling you what I'm looking for. During their early research experiences, predictors, but this is probably then the independent variable. But I don't really say what they are. Let's say, so, such as, and I might say time spent, or let's see, the mentored research experiences or opportunities. First generation status. Maybe I'm really particularly concerned that first generation students might not have all the opportunities that their non-first generation peers do. I could say gender. I'm just putting that in there. I don't know that I would want to put that in there. I'd have to base that on research. And prior, and let's say emotional affect. That's kind of like how they feel, or they feel during research. So here we go. I've got these variables that I have identified as well. So you've got to really identify what your independent and dependent variables are. Now, you might not, again, know all of these until later on, but you should have a good idea. You can come back later on and remodify your purpose as you clarify it. General definition of each key variable. Well, I've talked about research self-efficacy above. First generation, I haven't talked about first generation, but I do say, let's see. Students who have been historically underserved, low income, but first generation college students are often faced. So I kind of haven't done that. So maybe I need to, right? Between first generation students, which are those who are students whose parents did not complete a 4-year degree. By the way, there's a citation. I can't remember it, but I'll remember that. Sometimes I put cite in here for myself to remember to go back and look it up and put it back in, because I do need to cite. That's a definition that I want to cite. And actually, there's a national definition of that I found in one of the articles that everyone says this is what it is. So I put it in there. Okay. So there we go. Now let's move on to mixed methods, some particulars about mixed methods. The overall content intent. So are we going to have quantitative or qualitative? Or am I going to have one beginning and then the other one following? Or am I going to have a convergent design where I do both of them at the same time? What is my qualitative and quantitative looking like? right? What's my intent of that? Am I trying to explain? Am I trying to explore? You can go back to one of the first chapters of Creswell to kind of better understand what that is. And there's also the mixed method chapter. Discuss the reasons for combining. Now, this is a big deal. Don't just do mixed methods because it sounds nicer. It's a lot of work. Give me a reason why this is important, and to give your readers a reason right in the beginning of the purpose, why it's important to do mixed methods. Include the characteristics of good qualitative and quantitative purpose statement. Oh, notice you're going to have to do both, because with a mixed methods approach, you're using multiple methods, so it's almost double the work. So you have to have a good reason why you're doing it, and then combine both of them. And then indicate specific types of qual data collection. We're going to have narrative interview. We're going to do interviews, and I'm going to do a thematic analysis of the interviews. We're going to do observations, or we're going to do a survey. We're going to do a quasi-experiment where we have a treatment and control condition. So those are some things that to be thinking about to put in your introduction. Now, for a first draft, you might not have all of this, but again, I hope that this purpose, this checklist, especially the first 4, can really help you as you are preparing your checklist to know what you need to put in, as you're preparing your purpose statement and your introduction, to know what you need to be putting in there in order to really get the best possible amount of information and utility out of your introduction.